Okay, in this video I have an Olympus film scanner, ES-10. I saw a film scanner and thought, oh, that would be handy if it scans actual films. But it turns out this thing's probably only for slides and very slow at that. If you want to do a film in it, you'd actually have to do it one frame at a time by the look of it. So unfortunately it's also missing some bits and pieces. That little piece comes out, 35mm adapter. You're meant to have a piece that slots in there that holds like film negatives for a camera. Supposedly they're reasonably good, but it is actually quite old now. More made for Windows 98 and XP. No software with it either. Missing the power pack, but it's just 12 volts at 2.5 amps, I think it says. And yeah, supposedly I think someone was saying they could take up to 5 minutes to do one single image, but they supposedly did quite a good job. I forget what the resolution was, but reasonable. Looks like you can adjust the focus, but I think to get it run on the computer you could actually view the image, so you could probably focus it, check it was set up right, and then shot in the frame properly, and then wait for it to digitize it. But unfortunately I don't have all the bits for it, so I thought, oh well, I might just have a look inside it and see what it actually is. I assume it's just some sort of, should be able to see it in there almost, some sort of CCD device. And I guess it would have some software, because film negatives are called negative for a reason, because they're, I don't know if they're inverted light, but they're inverted color at least, and you have to use the color inversion feature in picture editors and stuff to get them to look right. I'm not sure if they're a full negative in the photo sense of blacks or white and vice versa, but possibly. They certainly look weird when you look at them. And I'm not sure quite what they do to the colour, how you actually invert a colour, or whether they're just different colours and you've got to swap them around. Not quite sure how they work. But anyway, we'll have a quick look inside this thing. Almost looks like, oh, it's got a mechanised mechanism, so it scans across. So it's obviously got a very small, must work much like a scanner for pictures. Oh, this actually said, oh, that's the focus. So it moves the mechanism back and forwards here. So that's probably why it's so slow. And I can see what looks like the CCD. We've got a chip, 2 rows of pins, I guess. Is that a, oh, I don't know if it's 28 pin, but 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. So 22 pin. Wider than your normal little 16 pin chips. So it's basically just a little colour CCD, I guess. And we've got a stepper motor, a big worm wheel to move it across. I don't think you can really turn that other than by, yeah, it's probably geared by the look of it off that motor, so it's probably not going to turn easily. It's got a Centronics connection. You can get an adapter to go from that to USB, because you won't find many computer cards or computers with that sort of connector anymore. It's basically the same as, I think, pretty much the 25 pin printer port, but different type of, well, the Centronics type connector. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, yeah, 36 pin. I was thinking it actually had more pins. That's a 25 pin. So it looks like you could print directly off this thing, maybe. And looks like we've got a light on the other side, so this still could potentially be useful for something. People were saying it wasn't very good with dark negatives. So if there is a light in there, which must be a light in there, it obviously wasn't strong enough for some things. If we can get that apart easily and have a look. Looks like you can take that screen bit off, but I think this thing is basically fairly obsolete now. But they are quite expensive to buy. Even these secondhand on eBay, they're asking quite a lot for them. But to get a more modern replacement, and if it only does slides, it's not really something I could use. I thought I do have a friend who's got an old film that I want to get digitized, but it's a lot easier just to use a, hey, that's coming, use a DSLR camera really and put it on a projector screen. I did that with our old home movies and it came out pretty good. You've just got to find somewhere quiet and dark for a while. Oh, here we go. Here's a little inverter board. Don't tell me that thing actually. Oh, that moves with it. So it's only a thin light. Oh yeah, it's a little cold cathode fluorescent tube in there. Little long thin one. Well, not that long I guess, but a linear sort of shaped tube. It's got it's a capacitor, surface mount capacitor, little inverter board, much like they used to have in those Atari Lynxes. I think had a little board like that. Just a very simple inverter to create a higher voltage. Not sure they only use a couple hundred volts or something, I think. And that's the main power switch. So as this CCD slides across, so does the light. So again, it's not lighting that whole panel up. It's just lighting one little part of it up. So very much like a scanner for paper and stuff, where it has a light coming out and a CCD that sort of move together and scan across it. So it's just like a mini scanner, basically, as you'd expect. So certainly there'd be potential to upgrade that to some LEDs or something. If you could get an even light output, you could certainly improve one of these things, I think, if they're not bright enough for use. But again, if you can't really get the software, I have to look online and see whether you can even get a copy of the software for these. But I think you're going to need a proper driver for it, because you've got to tell it to start up and run and do all that sort of thing. Like a scanner, I don't think there's sort of generic software necessary that runs it, but maybe it can be run off some sort of generic fax or scanner or something type Windows thing. I don't know. I doubt it. I would think it'd have to have specific stuff to run it. But it's actually in mint condition, this thing. Not a bit of dust on it or anything, so it looks like it's barely been used, but unfortunately someone's lost the bits that go with it somewhere. And if it doesn't do sort of moving film, it's not a lot of use anyway. It's just a very slow film, as in negative film sort of scanner, camera film scanner. Once it's processed into a negative, so yeah, not a lot of use. Olympus Optical Limited, made in Japan. Read and understand all instructions before using. Little tiny bit of dust in there, but it looks like someone stored this as they should in a good place, because you do not want dust in these things. And yeah, I don't know, I probably can't get on camera looking through the little window that the CCD looks through. I can see the little band that is the light. That's kind of an interesting design, that it's the light's just shining on that bit rather than lighting up the whole panel. Maybe it's just to make it cheaper and easier to make. And I doubt there's much else in there. There is a circuit board that runs right under it, but it's mainly just connectors and stuff that I can see on the top side anyway. Let's see some capacitors and stuff underneath. Don't think we can easily get to that. You've got to pull the whole thing to bits, so I don't think we'll bother looking at that. Probably a few chips in there to run things, and a bit of power supply. Oh, well, not that interesting at all, really. But nicely made little unit. I might have to poke around, see if I can find any more info on it, but like I say, not a lot of use to me anyway. And yeah, without the accessories, it's only, well, without even being able to test it, it might be a good replacement for a broken one or faulty one, if it can be proven to run. But I got no real way to test it. I could hook up power and see if it, probably all it does is, if it's not in the position it currently is, it probably resets to that position, and that's about it. It might do a test scan or something, but just movement of the motor. Well, something completely different. I didn't even know these things existed. I mean, I know there's scanners for camera negatives, but I haven't seen one like this before. It's a little bit more high end. I think they were a few $100s to buy originally. And there's stuff back in the early 2000s about them being a good second-hand one to buy when they were a good cheap way for people wanting to do their home stuff rather than paying quite a lot more for a new one at the time. And then, yeah, not much mention of them after that. I say still a few on eBay, but yeah, without a computer that can run the software, I don't know whether the software will be compatible with later Windows. There are still a few computers around with XP on them, so it'd probably be possible to find an old computer to run it. And you could probably make something as a replacement holder for the negatives to fit in there. Sure, it would be hard to cut something out of plastic or something. But yeah, if it takes like 5 minutes on each one, I'm not sure I really want to know. My dad already did all our ones anyway, and I've got a copy of them somewhere. Probably not as good a quality as this thing would do, but good enough to save the old photos. But anyway, something a bit different, so thanks for watching.